My name is John V. My guest today is Marty Merkley. He currently serves Chautauqua Institution as Vice President and Director of Programming. Last evening he led a splendid production of Carmina Burana. More about that later. He will be retiring in September after 25 years in this key position, and his work is the focus of one section of the Chautauquan Daily for this past weekend. Marty, welcome to Chautauqua People.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Great. What were your formative experiences in the arts?
Well, I've been, since I was a child, a very young child, I had a very nice boy soprano voice. So very early on I started singing and performing, and whenever the schools would do something where they needed a child, I was always asked if I would do it. So whenever they did The Music Man, I got to play Winthrop Peru. So I became quite the little actor and singer as a young child, and I just carried that on through the rest of my life. And through my education experience in the theater and in the opera world and the dance world and all of that, it really prepared me to come to Chautauqua and be present and to be the director of programming, because I had to know a little bit about a lot of the visual and performing arts.
So you had a very broad perspective on
Absolutely,
this,
very broad.
Can you tell me about a couple of key appointments you had before coming to Chautauqua?
Well, I was when I was in college, I worked at a financial analysis company and ran their computer systems. And this is way back when it was magnetic. First it was punch cards, and then magnetic tape. You can imagine how long ago that was. But that taught me how to be organized, because we had work, we had deadlines that had to be, and that was very formative in my life in teaching me how to manage time and also how to manage people and to do that well. And then from then on, after I did that, after I graduated from college, I worked with that company for several years, and then the opera company in Portland, Oregon, where I was living at the time, asked me if I would come and be the resident stage director, because in the meantime I was always doing things on the side. I was doing opera on the side, I was doing musical theater as an avocation. And so they asked me if I would come and be the stage director as their resident stage director at Portland Opera, which I did. And from there, the University of Southern California hired me to move back to LA, where I had spent some of my youth, and manage the opera department there at USC. And during that particular time, in the summers, I became involved with the LA Philharmonic, and then met Leonard Bernstein, and then eventually Michael Tilson Thomas. From there, I went to Miami Beach in Florida and founded an orchestral academy called the New World Symphony. And we worked on that for many years, and then I came to Chautauqua. So all of this prepared me to work at Chautauqua.
So how did you find your way to Chautauqua from Florida?
Well, it was very interesting. I saw an ad in the Organization for American Orchestras. It's called the American League of American Orchestras then. And there was an ad in there about a job opening at Chautauqua Institution. And they were looking for a program director, and they wanted someone that had experience in dance and the visual arts, in opera, in theater. And I thought, gee, I can do that. I just know enough to be dangerous. So I applied. And lo and behold, I got a phone call and said, well, we're interested in talking to you. I did a lot of interviews over the phone, gave them lots of references, and then Dan Bratton called me personally and said, he was president at the time, said, I'm going to be in West Palm Beach. Would you mind coming up from Miami and we can meet and talk? So I went up to West Palm Beach, met with Dan Bratton. The next thing I know, it is the fall, or it's early winter, and I'm called to Pittsburgh for a meeting with the search committee, and I had that. And the next thing I know, I'm arriving at Chautauqua, and it's early February, and it's snowy and it's cold, and I'm coming from Florida. I don't even own a coat. So I said to Dan, Dan, I don't even own a winter coat. He said, don't worry about it, I'll give you one of mine. So I was met at the Jamestown airport by Dan Bratton with a winter coat. So when I got off the plane, I could put on a winter coat, and then came to Chautauqua and spent several days interviewing and talking with people and seeing the grounds and seeing just how delightful this place was during the winter. And so I went back to Florida, and in a few weeks I got a phone call and said, well, how soon can you start? I said, well, how soon do you want me? And he said, as fast as you can get here. So I packed up and put everything in a moving van and drove to Chautauqua and arrived in early March and began putting the season together, my first season together in 1991.
Magnificent, magnificent. And What are your current responsibilities at Chautauqua?
Well, the program director, vice president and director of programming is the person who is in charge of all the visual and performing arts. So the opera company, the theater company, the ballet company, the visual arts program, the Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra, the School of Music, all of that answers to the program office. We also schedule all the performance venues. So of the 14 different venues in which there are presentations at Chautauqua, we schedule all those, and that includes the crews and the unions that work behind the scenes. So I do not choose the lecturers who come to Chautauqua for the 1045 program, but my drivers pick them up at the airport. They are housed in the Hagen-Wensley guest house, which my office runs. We produce them on the stage. We get them on the stage. We make sure their audio visuals work. We make sure their microphones work. We produce their lecture, and when they're done, we drive them back to the airport. So we're involved in every part of the visual and performing arts, and then all the other presentations. It's like the same with the religion. I don't do the religion department. I don't choose the preachers, but I produce their programs in the amphitheater. Okay. So we've got our fingers in pretty much all of the different pies at Chautauqua.
So you're a very busy man during the season. But how many people are you responsible for in the peak of the season?
Well, my office has 6 people in it during the year round. In the summertime, we hire another 2,000.
2,000?
Yes. That includes all the faculty, all the staff, all the students that come to Chautauqua in our schools of fine and performing arts. So there are about 2,000 people that descend on us in a matter of 3 weeks, and that we get working in all the buildings and in all of the various art forms and all the departments, as well as all the unions and all these, and the 300 students that come to us around from across the country and many foreign countries.
Right. Now that's a magnificent job you do, and it's very rare we hear that there's anything that isn't right with those folks. They come in, they're on track, and so many of them leave. My favorite word is aglow, and write us great things afterward.
Well, it's amazing because we are very fortunate at Chautauqua because of the very dedicated staff. Our artistic staff and the managing directors of the various programs are people who come back every year, and they help build and keep the continuity of the programs. And then the staff that we hire, even you talk about the young college kids who come and run the crews, who take care of the audiovisual, who set up the chairs and the stands for the orchestra rehearsals, who work in the amphitheater, who make all these things happen. They're very dedicated, and everybody buys into the principle that something very special is happening at Chautauqua, that the institution has a place and a role in this country, and that it's very important what is happening. And everybody buys into that, and everybody works toward the common goal of making sure that the program runs well and that people are happy, that not just the performers, not just the audience, but also their colleagues, because we are all each other's customer when it comes to serving each other, and we all work as a team to make it happen.
I found that very high level of professionalism using from the seasonal employees when I've set up a camera to shoot a video in a program. Obviously, it has to be done within certain boundaries, but very helpful. What do you need? Can we do this? And let's all make it a success.
Yeah.
And I'm just impressed. Let me switch gears here to something that you and I talked about substantially in the past, and that is the symphony is our biggest artistic venue, I would guess, in terms of the budget and the number of folks involved. Mm-hmm. And we have a new conductor, and often when you are hiring somebody anew, you'll give them instructions about how to shift and change the organization. And I've known over the years that we've had some positions that have been open, such as in the cello section. I wonder what sort of direction is being set now. And we're going to have the new symphony conductor sitting in that chair tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So he gets the same question.
Wonderful. Well, the artistic director of any program, and you're speaking of Ross and Milanoff here with the Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra, artistic directors are hired to bring their vision to their particular art form. They come with great experience, they come with great education, they have been around the world, they know what's happening in their particular world, and Rawson is no exception to that rule. You bring these people in, they bring their ideas, and they bring their passions, and they bring their excitement and energy, and that's very important to have that on a constant flow of that energy into Chautauqua to keep the program vital and interesting and keep it current in what's happening in the world. So the instructions are not so much do this, do that. The instruction is what can we do together to do it better,
Okay.
to improve, to try new things, to be innovative while upholding the tradition of, when you talk about music, you talk about the Western canon, but what can you do to make it more interesting to people? How can you make it interesting not just for the audience, but also for the performers? Orchestras must be interested, they must like what they're doing.
Right.
You don't want them to become tired and jaded because they play the same thing over and over again. So you're constantly challenging them with repertoire as well as what you're doing for the audience, making it new and fresh for everyone.
Right, right. And I know the first couple of performances, most of my friends were listening to the symphony, CSO, very critically. I said, wow, this is going to be a good arrangement, because everything we see, it looks like the musicians are very responsive to him, and hope that continues for a long time.
Yes, it is, and that's the choice that when you choose someone to run a program, you look at all facets of their personality, not just what kind of a musician are they, how do they interact with the musician. The chemistry between an orchestra and a conductor is much like a marriage. Any sort of relationship in the arts world is very much like a marriage, because people have to work together, they have to trust one another, they have to feed off each other energy-wise and concept-wise. So you really have to find that right chemistry that really works. And when it really works, then spectacular things happening. And that's the great thing about Rawson, is that his energy and the chemistry between Rawson and the orchestra has been very good. When I first met Rawson was 4 years ago, now 5 years ago. He came to conduct and the Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra, and I liked him immediately, and I thought, this is somebody special. This is someone I think could work well at Chautauqua. So I had him back every year for the 3 years that we saw about 14 guest conductors each summer, to try to get more people into the orchestra, into our orchestra world here, and for the orchestra to get to see a lot of different conductors. And Rawson was one of those people that stood out in my mind as really a very possible candidate, really a viable person. And so when we went to the final search, he was one of those that made the final cut, and I was very pleased that he did that. It was not a shoo-in that he would get the job, but there was committees, there was also input from the orchestra, from the public, as well as the search committee that was involved in that. But when it came down to it, we did the KIP committee, the recommendations were made to us. We decided on Rawson, and it was, in fact, I believe, a really, truly wonderful decision to make.
And I think history will bear that out.
I certainly hope so. It certainly has so far, and we're only into our first year.
Right, right. Now, are you filling some musician positions this year?
Well, we have quite a bit of turnover. The orchestras, the members of the orchestra are aging, and so we've had several that have decided to retire, so those are open positions. We had this summer 10 different positions in the orchestra were open. A couple due to people passing away. We had some people who were finding that this schedule did not really work well with their other work. We had one of our musicians who is in the studio system in LA, and it was really impossible for him to be here and lose his work in the studio system because it's so competitive there. So he decided it was better that he resigned from the orchestra, and we have various things happen. So we've been auditioning. There's a whole process by contract. It's very specific in the contract how we audition for each of the sections in the orchestra. So we had auditions for violas, violins, cello, trombone, and percussion, and second clarinet. So we've had quite and third bassoon and contrabassoon. So we are filling all of those positions this year.
Wonderful.
So it's quite an exciting thing that happens when you have a lot of turnover, new people coming in, new energy. It really changes the dynamic of an orchestra to do that.
And I live in North Carolina and have a subscription to the North Carolina Symphony, also a subscription to a chamber music group that is very high-end, and they can just handpick the best of the North Carolina Symphony. They're young folks in this chamber group. We get to talk with them. I know a couple times I've made the plea to them, talk to the personnel manager who is, get your name in it, and they hear that word Chautauqua, and the concert master talks really well about Chautauqua, and he's in Raleigh, and it's the same guy for our viewers.
Right.
And I hope when I go back that I can put the squeeze on them and say, now, did you apply? And how did the selection process go? And was it good and fair? And I hope people come back and say, I'll see you at Chautauqua, you owe me an ice cream cone or something.
Good, excellent.
So, just the best. A couple of them, young, finishing DMAs. Exactly the type we want around on campus.
Yes, yeah. There is such a wealth of young people coming out of universities and conservatories and schools of music that are so incredibly talented, and the competition for jobs in any part of the arts, including the orchestral world, is intense, because you're competing with your colleagues of your own age, but you're also competing with people who have been in the business 35 or 40 years who are looking to make changes in their lives. So it's very competitive, and there's wonderful talent out there.
Right. Marty, how have the arts programs changed on your watch?
Well, I would say that over the past 25 years, we've seen a tremendous growth in them. We've seen a certain coming of age in the programs. We've seen a tremendous more community involvement in those programs, much more what we call the friends of groups, those kind of things, people who are very passionate about a particular art form. They want to support that by volunteering their time and their energy in support of those programs. I think we've seen a tremendous growth in the quality of our schools of fine and performing arts. Our music school, the Musical Festival Orchestra, which is our basically college-age orchestra, has just grown leaps and bounds, and that has to do with the faculty that they're interested in coming and studying with. It comes with the growing reputation of Timothy Muffet, the conductor of that program. All of this over the years has built up. We became a Steinway Festival several years ago. There are only 4 of them in the United States: Aspen, Tanglewood, Brevard, and now Chautauqua. And that's all there will ever be. And Steinway provides us pianos in the summertime. And we earned that by, number 1, having great faculty, number 2, having good facilities in which these pianos are placed during the summer for the use of our students, and 3, the reputation of the institution. And so all of this worked well for Steinway to buy in to the concept of providing us with the pianos during our summer season. So
I personally thought the music school is the biggest long-term gain in the arts quality, and I thought about this preparing. I said, you've guided it through. The improvement of those facilities was part of a previous capital campaign, and having somebody in your seat for 2 decades and 2.5 decades to see it through that capital campaign, to articulate what needs to be done, to usher the faculty along, is significant. And if I take my very narrow-minded way, having spent many years in Rochester, I always thought the best student symphony was the Eastman Philharmonia. And now I go take a look at those folks in the amphitheater on Monday night. Yeah. And I think they've got the upper hand.
They're pretty special.
They are.
And this year, 2015, really has been a stellar year for the students. It's just unbelievable, the quality of the orchestra, the playing, and the attitude of the students. They come here and they are like human sponges, and they just absorb so much. And because they're with other people from different art forms, from the other disciplines, so they're living in our dormitories with dancers and singers and instrumentalists and visual artists and actors, so they get to see all these other people and how involved they are in their particular art form and the challenges they have, and it's great education for them, and they come out more well-rounded, and they come out with a renewed passion for what they have decided to do in their life, because they have a supportive community also that is there and says the choices that you're making in your life to pursue music or pursue art or pursue your voice training, all these things are wonderful, and that is very important to them, the support they get from the community.
Indeed. Let's switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about this inter-arts programs which we've had for a series of 3 years. Tell me about the development of that.
Well, it was decided about 5 years ago that the performing arts are outside of the schools, because we do attract the students, but outside of the schools is not as well known as we would like it to be. Mm-hmm. People go to various festivals. They go to Marlborough, they may go to Santa Fe for opera, they may go to Tanglewood for the Boston Symphony, but we were trying to help put Chautauqua on the map. And we thought maybe one of the ways to do that was to bring the inter-arts collaborations out into the forefront There has always been collaborations at Chautauqua. The natural collaborations between orchestra and opera, and between orchestra and ballet, and those sorts of things are the natural collaborations. But we thought with all of these things under the umbrella of the institution, could we bring them together in a way that was unique and very individual to Chautauqua? So we thought we would try a 3-year process to see if this could actually help us in our arts marketing to the outside world. And we decided there would be 3 phases of it. The first year would be a piece that we would do an inner arts collaboration using a piece for which there are many different representations. So we chose the Romeo and Juliet project. You have the Shakespeare play, you have the Prokofiev ballet, you have the opera, the Gounod opera, Romeo and Juliet. Of course, you have West Side Story by Bernstein based on the same theme. So we thought, let's try something like that and use that same story, but do a creative process of bringing all those different stories and those different medium together and do a special thing. So that was the first year. The second year we thought we would do something pretty much from whole cloth. And the second year was going to be the 200th anniversary of the publications of the Lewis and Clark journals. And so we thought about something about the United States, about I should say, the conquering of the continent, expansion of the continent from east to west. And so we had the Go West program. And this was something that did not exist before. There's no ballet, there's no theater, there's no opera based on this subject. So it had to be made from whole cloth. So we brought all the departments together, and they all contributed parts to this about the expansion of the American continent. As we said, the shame and the pride of the expansion of the United States of America. The third year, it was decided that we would do an existing piece in its entirety, but we would do a Chautauqua twist to it. Now, I had done Carmina in 1992, and then again in 1999 for the 125th anniversary of the institution. And so it was decided that perhaps we should do that one again because it was so successful. People are still talking about those productions. So they asked me if we could do that again, and I said that would be fine. So we're taking the Carmina Burana by Carl Orff, and we are performing it in its entirety as it was intended, with orchestra, chorus, and ballet. And then we're doing our own twist to it by adding some other segments between the Carmina segments that all work towards the Orff project.
Let's talk a little more about Carmina here. And you've led these 3 performances of Carmina over the years. This is the handbill, which is used, probably handbill isn't a good term, but it's a tabloid piece which has the music, and this was issued both during 2 performances, July and August. And how have these performances been different? And we can take a look here on the screen. Maybe you could talk through and tell us what's unique about these.
Well, this particular Carmina was based on, let me start over again. This Carmina I was thinking about what it would be the concept of this one. You have an existing piece, but you want to do a twist. You want to make it different. So by adding between the sections of Carmina, Carmina is 24 poems that Orff took from an 11th to 13th century manuscript called the Burana's manuscript. And he took these, there are hundreds of poems, almost 300 poems in there. They are written by monks or former monks, and they are totally not religious. These are all about love and spring and bawdiness and drinking, all the things that monks don't do, supposedly. But he took these and he used 24 of the poems, and in between many of those poems, because of the segmentation of the Orff, we've added some other of our own segments in there. And it just so happened that there was a man came to Chautauqua by the name of Wayne Hankin, and a friend of his thought that he would be someone that would be interesting for Chautauqua. Maybe he could teach some special studies courses or something, because he is an actor, he is a musician, he's an early musician using ancient instruments. He's worked for Pixar, he was with Cirque du Soleil at the beginning, done all kinds of things. And so it went to Shara Babcock, who was the director of education, and she brought it into me and she says, I really can't use him for anything. It doesn't make sense for us. And I opened the thing and looked at this and I thought, this guy's a composer, he's an early musician, he will know about the Orff style of music. And so I got him on the phone and I said, are you interested in doing a project? So that was the hook. So what we did was we took existing Orff music and we arranged it for early musicians. And those segments are put in between the regular parts of the Carmina. And so, and right now you're seeing on the screen, we had projections on the ceiling that went along with this, what was happening. And here's one of the things. This is one of the parts of Carmina that is not, there's no choreography to this part. It's just strictly chorus and orchestra. And this is all about spring. And so projected on the ceiling of the amphitheater was this time-lapse photography of flowers blooming, and we did all kinds of stuff. So it was really interesting, and the people that know the Orff music were very interested to see what we did with them, because these are established pieces, and Orff had his own way of teaching music.
Right.
And so this was all used in that. And in fact, one of the pieces that we did in the performance was called the March of the Drums, and this was music that was written in 1936 by Orff for the entrance into the stadium of the Olympics. This was in 36 in Nazi Germany,
Berlin,
when this was done. And so that music was all destroyed. After Orff wrote Carmina Burana, and it was premiered in 1937 in Nazi Germany, it became so popular, so fast, that the Nazi censors let it go. They let it stay. And it is on one of the few pieces that survived, that was written during that period of time in Nazi Germany, that actually survived untainted by the Nazi curse that went with a lot of music that period of time.
Right.
So we had that piece, and we knew there was a recording on a 78 of this piece, and it's actually on YouTube. You see the record playing, the old 78 playing, and someone reaches in and drops the needle down, and you hear the sounds. So Wayne took that piece and transcribed it from the record and arranged it for early musicians, and it's called the March of the Drums, and they play it and they march through. And that was the entrance music to the Olympics in 1936. It has not been played or in any way since that time in 1936.
Great, and it made for a happy evening last night, didn't it?
It did. It was truly wonderful. There were about 500 people in the cast, and the chorus came from the Buffalo Philharmonic Chorus, the Rochester Oratorio Society, and the Pittsburgh Youth Chorus. They all bust in. They do a rehearsal, we feed them dinner, and then they do the performance, and they get on the buses and go home after the performance. So it was wild, it was crazy, it was very exciting.
And I use the word aglow again. I am still up from that, and people I saw afterward, the musicians leaving, the folks on the stage, were very, very happy to have had that performance.
Well, it's a powerful piece. The piece has even though there's nothing spiritual about the piece when you talk about in the religious sense, but there's something that's so powerful about it, and it speaks to us almost primevally. The rhythm in it, everything is so wonderful that it sets people alight. And the whole concept of this was, it was really going to be a feast for the eyes and the ears. So there was so much happening, and the dancers on the stage, and the ceiling, the fabulous projections on the ceiling, and all this was just to stimulate the senses and just make everybody, just go, oh my goodness, this is incredible. And that was the whole thing. I think we achieved that last night.
You certainly did. You certainly did. And we're going to bring it back, and I hope it can be performed again in the future at Chautauqua. Is that the biggest ever Carmina production?
That's the biggest. We've had, in the other times, the first one we did back in '92, the text that we used the English text that help introduce different sections, so people kind of have an idea, because the whole thing is in Latin and what they called the Old German, and with a spattering of French in it. So it's very difficult to understand. But we provided the translation in this particular program that we handed out. You actually see the text and you see the translation next to it. Mm-hmm. But we used some English text to introduce the sections, and those were the first time they were spoken by a jester on a unicycle. Really? Because it was like a medieval fair.
Right.
So we had all these people around, and it was all that. The production in '99 was actually like a passion play. Where we had Christ actually coming in, dragging the cross and all this stuff with the Passion, and then we had all this stuff was woven into the Carmina stuff. And this time it was about the Orff music, and it was about the bringing that music back to life, and the sensory feeling of just overwhelming visually and orally your soul.
Right.
So.
Right.
So it's the biggest. This is the biggest one.
And fantastic. I've seen the Passion Play in Oberammergau with the 500 people, and
Yeah.
and this is I hate to put the Germans down, but I think this is a better theatrical production.
Well, thank you.
and,
Thank you.
and in so many ways.
Well, it was interesting because we had children as young as probably 11 between the children's choir and the young dancers that did. There was a clip in here of the Maypole dance,
Right.
and that was a special dance using Orff music. It was not part of the Carmina music, but one of the, we'll call them the olios, the inserts. And they were young, the young dancers. I wanted the opportunity for the young dancers, both male and female, to have an opportunity to dance because the company, the professional company, was doing the main part. So we had them as young as 11, and I think probably the oldest person that sang in the motet choir for their little section was in their 90s.
Goodness.
So there's everything in between.
Goodness.
They were all participating in this, and it was quite an amazing
It was
thing.
fun. I hope in editing, I think I meant to get some of the kids in there, and we had some
Yeah.
clips on that. If I didn't get them in, then shame on me. Let me switch gears here for a little bit, and we're going a little bit long, but we've got a very indulgent crew, and they'll let me get away with this. Marty, I think you've brought the Mormon Tabernacle Choir to Chautauqua 3 times on your watch. And I know it's a very expensive, but it's a very rewarding experience. And the first time when they came, and I was not on the board of trustees at the time, but just had a very nice conversation with your folks, waiting for the buses to arrive, and it was simply because they were going to stop in front of my house, and we made wonderful conversation. How are they doing?
Well, they're doing okay. My mother's doing great. She's here this summer.
Great.
She's come for the last 2.5 weeks of the season. She wanted to come for the Carmina because she's seen the other 2,
Right.
and she wanted to come for this one, and so she's here. My father has severe dementia and does not travel anymore and must stay at home, and he has care. So my mother arranged for him to be cared for by his nieces and his daughters, who are taking shifts with him while he's gone, and so she's getting a little vacation from that. He's healthy. He just doesn't remember much of us anymore,
Yeah.
and that's kind of sad, but that's the way life is. But
Right.
my mother's doing very well, and this is again because I'm retiring. Will be her last summer at Chautauqua as well. So she's retiring from Chautauqua too.
She must have been immensely proud last night.
I think she was aglow as well.
Great, great. Now I got one wise guy question, and I know you well enough that I can ask a wise guy question and get away with it. You have the reputation for being the best dressed member of the Chautauqua staff. Where do you buy your clothes?
Well, I buy my clothes wherever I go.
You do?
If I'm someplace and I go into a store and I find something, I buy it. I am one of these people that likes to mix and match things.
Okay.
So I'll buy all sorts of things, but I say, well, that'll go with that, and that'll go with that, So I just buy things wherever I find something that's interesting. If you notice in the video last night at the Carmina, I was wearing a white
T-shirt.
Well, it was a Tux T-shirt,
Yeah.
a T-shirt that's printed with the Tux bow tie on that, with black pants, and then I had this white looks like a waiter's jacket, but it's a tuxedo jacket. It's cut short. And that was just something, I saw that and I thought, oh, I'm going to buy that and wear that to Carmina. I did. That's what I bought it, and I wore it for the Carmina performance.
I thought it was a printed T-shirt the first time I saw it, and I said, oh, that's pretty clever because that's nice and cool in this hot room, and
Yes.
you've got all the electronics about you, and
Yeah.
everybody's wanting decisions made during the program. Now, where are you going to be buying your clothing in the future? What follows Chautauqua?
Well, I am moving to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
I'm going to be living in Alexandria, Virginia, right up the Potomac I'm 20 minutes from the Kennedy Center,
Okay.
actually, and I'm about 10 minutes from Reagan National Airport, which is nice. I'm going to be doing some arts foundation work in the D.C. area. I've been working on a foundation, a private foundation, for about 3 years, working on part-time there, getting that up and running, and so I'll be doing some very interesting work and turning that, doing that foundation and we're going to start making grants soon and putting that whole process in place. I've also had a lot of invitations to come and do some special projects and to do some consulting work, and so I wanted to be near an airport that I could get in and out of the city. I wanted not to be experiencing the Chautauqua winters because I'm a little tired of them. After all these years, I'm really tired of shoveling snow. And I decided, so I thought I would go there because, you know, in Washington, when you say the S word, you just say the word snow, they think it might be forecast that there will be one flake that will fall. They shut down the whole place. Everything shuts down. The government shuts down. Schools, everything closes just for the fear there might be a snowflake fall. So I'm looking forward to that. But it's a whole new career for me. I wanted to make a change after 25 years at Chautauqua. I felt it was time for me to move on, to get some new blood, new ideas, and new passions into the institution. I wanted to change my life. I would like to work just 8 hours a day. That would be a wonderful vacation if I could just have an 8-hour-a-day job rather than 16 or 18 hours, depending on the time of the year. And I wanted to do some things while I'm still young enough to do them, and I still have my health, and I want to do some traveling and work all of this into my past life and what I'm bringing forward into the new life and what I can share with other people. So.
Okay.
That's the plan right now. We'll see how well that goes,
well,
but so far so good.
If you decide you want to make a change, it's warmer and nicer in North Carolina than it is in Washington.
Oh yes, well I'm probably going to move down, as things happen I'll probably move down the coast and maybe I'll move through North Carolina on my way down.
Great, we'll find a good arch job for you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Great. Marty, this has been great fun. Do come back.
Thank you, John. It's been a joy. And thank you to all your listeners out there for all the years and the friendships, the hellos and tops. Quality before tops, and now tops. Thanks for the wonderful years I've spent here in Chautauqua County and in Mayville.
I know that people appreciate hearing that.
Thanks.
So thank you so much. Do come back.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.